Recording.
All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to this Story Studio podcast. I just realized that, Will, I don't know how to pronounce your last name, so that probably would have been a good thing for me to know before I said anything. You want to tell me on the sly here? Nobody's listening.
Sure. It's Will Dages, rhymes with Las Vegas.
Dages. Okay. So I knew it was Will, and I knew how it was spelled, but I realized I didn't know how to pronounce it.
If you had asked before we started rolling, you wouldn't have that catchy way of remembering it.
That's true. I wouldn't have that.
Dave gave me one this week. So, we all have those words that we always fuck up. So for me, principal and principal, I always get those mixed up. And Dave corrected all of my principals, and he goes, just so you know, if it's a person, it's a
idiot.
pal. And I was like, I'll never forget that again.
I love that.
Don't you think it's a little dangerous to have Dave correcting all your principals?
I really do. It's a dark, dark closet I've been living in.
All right. Well, my little fumble aside, it's actually pretty good because I heard I was listening to I listened to Dave's and Sean's interviews and mine that Neve and Bonnie and Niney did, and I heard from Neve that I have a smoothness to this hosting that she found hard to match or something. So I'm like, okay, well, this is just all part of the charm. It's all just part of the charm. So we are back for another maybe. Well, I don't want to give order, but this is another of our State of the Industry podcasts, and we are on with Will Dages, like Las Vegas. I think you should be Vegas Dages and just go with it.
That happened in high school. I'm over that phase now. Not Las Vegas Dages anymore.
Have you ever heard what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas?
It's a D in Vegas.
So Will is head of Findaway Voices, and Findaway Voices is, what's the best description for Findaway, Will? Because we know you guys as basically a way, to get our audiobooks produced where you sort of manage the whole project. You really help us with casting. You know the space and know how to advise on that. You'll do I know a lot of the services are sort of a la carte and you can choose whether you want to do them or not. So how would you describe Findaway?
So Findaway Voices is the self-publishing arm of Findaway. Findaway itself is actually a much bigger company, about 150 people. It's been around for about 15 years. So Findaway Voices is only about 3 years old. We're the self-publishing arm, and we do two things. We help make books, and we help distribute books. So you can kind of think of us like the draft to digital for audio is an easy way to think of it. When you have an audiobook, you can upload it to us, and we'll send it out to 43 retail and library partners. And, every month we collect all the sales and make one nice little report and payment for you. But if you also need a book created, then we're really good at that too. And we can help there too.
Well, I will say that that this is the second thing that you just said, the draft to digital of audiobooks, that is just as good as Vegas. So it's like, I think we should just have you on to explain things. You seem pretty good at explaining stuff. So that's great.
Thank you.
I'll never forget that. So maybe a good place to start is, and on these State of the Industry, we're sort of, I know this is kind of a spoiler, but we're looking for the state of the industry. But we want to, sort of hear how Findaway Voices came about. You said it, grew out of the larger company Findaway. Why did you do it? What was sort of the day one mission? And then we'll move into why, how things have changed and how you see things today.
Yeah, and it seems that in just the last few years that you've had the Findaway Voices, already that seems to be expanding and branching off and changing and very quickly evolving. So yeah, like the full timeline.
Yeah, well, I'll do it in less than 2 hours for you, okay? So I'll give you the 3 minute version.
And so this is relevant to everybody. The reason this is great is because even though Findaway is a vendor, there aren't other drafted digitals for audios. So we get a real bird's eye view of the entire audio landscape by talking to Findaway, because there's nothing we could really talk about as far as the audio indie publishing conversation that we can't have here. So
that's right. We do have kind of a unique position in the audiobook industry where, there can be a lot of ebook aggregators because you can go direct so many places. Anybody can set up those accounts. It's not like that in the audiobook world. Really,
is it because it's who you know and you already had those relationships?
It's kind of the way the industry just started. Like the audiobooks themselves, which we're gonna start here, and then we'll go back further, and we'll come back to this point. But audiobooks are really big files. It's more expensive bandwidth to do that. They've typically been a very small part of most retailers' overall strategy. and it hasn't made sense for them to invest in direct upload capabilities. So they've all like started using aggregators. And as they start up, we're right there. Findaway has a catalog of over 300,000 audiobooks, and any retailer out there that wants to start offering audiobooks, well, they can go like collect those 300,000 audiobooks, or they could just snap their fingers and come to us and say, well, we're going to get kickstarted, and like, we don't have to worry about the content. We have it all, and the delivery technology. And that lets them focus just on what makes their offering unique to customers and focus on their market segment and their business model and how they want to take a chip out of Audible, right? So we really take the content negotiation, the content
Is that your
contracts
tagline?
out of,
Take a chip out of Audible?
no, but it could be. It
I
could
like
be.
it.
Yeah, it's good. I just
It's
came up with
sexy.
that right now.
It's great.
Too bad it's not Apple he's competing with. I mean, take a bite out of Apple.
Oh, see, that would be great. But Apple's such a great partner of ours. We don't want
Right.
to take a bite out of them.
Or you could be like McGruff. Take a
How about
bite
take
out of
a bite
crime.
with
Take a bite out of crime. So let me go back to like how Findaway started. So Findaway started about 15 years ago with a little consumer electronic device called a playaway. It's about the size of a deck of cards. It holds one audiobook.
Dave has a little pocket-sized playaway too. It does something totally different.
Wow, really?
Yeah, let's not go there right now. We'll talk about the Playaway. So the Playaway is a single preloaded audiobook player. You can't swap other audiobooks onto it. You plug in your headphones and a AA battery and you go, right? Really, really simple. We tried to sell it direct to consumer, didn't work. But a librarian picked one up in an airport one day and called us and said, hey, can I circulate this in my library? And we're like, yeah, like go for it. Like, let's see what's here. And they make perfect sense in the libraries. So, they circulate way more times than a CD can. This is before smartphones. We're talking 15 years ago. They really carved out a niche in the industry. And through growing this product, we started getting more and more relationships with publishers and getting more and more content in Findaway. After a couple years of that, we realized we're sitting on like 40,000 audiobooks. And they were like even better quality than what was sent to us, because they would, publishers would send us like CDs at that time. And we'd have to go in and edit out like insert disc 2, insert disc 3. Like it didn't make sense on the product. So we actually cleaned up all of these files in a way that made them better than the source material that was given to us. And we thought, well, we kind of have two options now. Like, should we go up against Audible? Like, we have the catalog now, like we could. But instead, we decided to go this other route, which we already kind of talked about, which is Audio Engine. It's an audiobook API. We said, let's take all of this content, let's put it in an API so anybody who wants to compete in the audiobook space doesn't have to worry about the content. They don't have to worry about the delivery. They can just focus on their customers and what makes them unique. So we did that for a couple years. We keep working with publishers. We're kind of working like on the top of the list down, right? Like big publishers have like 40,000 titles. Like, yes, big win. We just increased our catalog a ton. But after a while, like you get through that list and there's none of those left, and you're getting smaller and smaller wins and the diminishing returns. And we realized we've helped create this industry with like, at this point it was 25, 30 partners, but the only people who can get their audiobooks to those partners are people who are signed with a publisher. There's no way of just like uploading the book, because we're doing like negotiations and like back and forth, like custom contracts. And we can't do that for somebody who just has a couple books, right? So that's where Findaway Voices comes about. We realize we're missing this huge segment of the industry of small publishers, self-published authors, and we decided to open up Findaway Voices so that anybody can make an account, upload the audiobook in the right format, and it can reach those partners. And when we do that, now we're starting to create a world where it makes sense not to go exclusive, because you actually have some other options. And you got to remember, like the way that we are structured, we want as much content as we can to feed it to all of our partners to grow all of them as strong as we can. When a title goes exclusive to Audible, we can't get that title. Like libraries can't have it, subscription platforms can't have it, and all of a sudden that's a title that can be drawing a subscriber away from one of those places that wants to compete. So it's all about the content, and we want as much as we can get. And that's why we've worked really hard to make Findaway Voices as friendly and easy as possible to just like go in the dashboard, sign up for an account, and upload some titles. I've had some customers that have been able to upload like more than 100 titles in a day. Like it's a long day, but they can power through and get some serious content up there, right? So that's kind of like the 3-4 minute history of Findaway and how like Findaway Voices sits in there.
So, okay, so this is cart before the horse a little bit, but this is occurring to me when you're talking about the drafted digital and being available in libraries and all that stuff. By the way, drafted digital, you owe us our bribe payment now for mentioning you so many times. They okay, that the joke now cost me my train of thought. What I was going to say is that in the Amazon exclusivity for books argument, there's a lot of like, do you go KU or wide? That's a question we'll circle later, but we understand sort of the economics of that. There's not just there's that whole like exclusivity engine thing that seems to happen with their algorithms, and there's page reads, and so there's huge advantages monetarily for exclusivity, and then you kind of need to really have some good luck off of Amazon to make wide worth it right now. So when we're talking about audiobooks, I believe now, I think this is right. So Audible, I believe, is 40% if you're exclusive to Audible, and 20% if you're not. Is that correct?
25% if you're not.
Okay. So how did the economics shake out there? Because it seems to me that it wouldn't be the same thing because there's not the equivalent of page reads and this weird algorithmic thing. So when people go wide, would you care to venture any guesses as to like the 40% person who goes exclusive versus the average 25% person who goes non-exclusive? Like, how are they stacking up? Are people able to make up that 15% difference?
Yes. More and more, a lot of people are making up that 15% difference. In fact, we released our 2019 headphone report. I want to try to pull it up real quick because I don't want to misquote the stat, but I believe it's
report. This sounds intriguing.
Right. Yeah. We took a whole bunch of data that we've scraped from the sales that we saw in 2019. We released a ton of stats about how the audiobook market is. Like, what's the split on units versus royalties on all the different business models? What are the highest growing, the fastest growing genres? Here it is. It's 27% of authors. So about a quarter of authors on Findaway Voices that are distributing everything through us, so we can see the full picture, made at least double what they would have made going exclusive with Audible, right? So they're taking that 15% hit at Audible, and they're still making double what they would have at 40%. So, I mean, that's pretty significant, and that's growing all the time. Oh, I saw in the comments, where do I sign? Yeah, on my.findawayvoices.com. Let's do it. But yeah, the whole industry is growing, and here's how it shakes out with Audible exclusivity, right? So if you go exclusive, you get 40% royalty rate. If you go non-exclusive, it's 25%. And you're only reaching 3 platforms through there: Amazon, Audible, and Apple Books. But Amazon doesn't really sell the audiobook. They just show it and link it to Audible. So you're really buying, your 2 sales platforms are Audible and Apple Books. And about 2 years ago, we got to sign a direct deal with Apple Books, where we get you a 45% royalty rate, and you get to control your price, and you get to set promotions on Apple Books. So it's a much better deal there. So all of a sudden, like, when you're going to ACX and Findaway Voices network, so through Apple, through us, and Audible through ACX or through us is fine too. That 40% is starting to like erode a little bit because now all your Apple Book sales are actually at 45%. This is feeling like it's coming out really confusing. Did I like totally butcher this? Or should I start over?
It's a little confusing, but I'm going to get a spreadsheet after the show, and I'll figure it out. I'll work it out. I got an accountant on retainer.
Yeah, I'm sorry. So let me simplify it here. When you submit through ACX, your audiobook basically goes to 2 places: Audible and Apple Books. But we can take Apple Books out of that equation, right? And you can stop losing that 15% there. You can actually gain 5% more by going to them through us. And you get a whole lot more controls like price control, promotions, discounts, that kind of stuff too.
I believe that's also a little like Drafted Digital. I feel like there was a deal there too, where they were like, through us, we can do this. So that's great. I mean, that's all very encouraging. We've seen, everybody's talked about audio on these, not everybody, but a lot of people have talked about audio on
Audio
these.
has been a hot, consistent topic for sure, because it's such a growth area.
For sure.
Are you guys seeing more growth during COVID? Just sort of off topic, I thought of that. Like, are people buying more audiobooks?
A ton more. Yeah, we had kind of a scary moment, like right when the stay-at-home orders happened, because with the subscription partners, like, it's measured based on how much listening happens, so we can kind of keep an eye on like some trends, like real-time trends sometimes. And we saw it when the stay-at-home orders happened. We saw like huge cliff, and we were like, oh boy, here we go. Like, how big is the commute as part of the audiobook world, right? Because everybody just stopped commuting for a week. Like, what's going to happen? Is this all going to collapse?
Now people have to spend time with their families and stuff. How do you get anything done?
Right. Maybe that's actually what's encouraging the growth now, is that everybody wants headphones on at home.
Dave walks around all the time. Sorry, I'm not listening to an audiobook. Shh, quiet.
But after that first week, we saw it come back to normal levels, and then it's just been growing ever since. So people have still found ways to reintroduce audiobooks into different parts of their lives and different rituals, either while they're working out or, me, I had like a 40-minute commute each way. We're working from home now, but I needed to replace that with something so I could like gear up for the day and wind down for the day. So I listen for a set period of time before I log on in the morning. And it's not as much, it's like 30 minutes instead of 40 minutes, but it's that time where I can like have my commute time at home. And I've found ways to keep it back in, because I listen to about a book a week myself. And everybody else seems to have done the same, because we've just seen week over week growth every week during COVID. It's been incredible.
Well, it's also a time to, for voice actors, like you could produce a lot. I could see a lot of people putting more energy into getting the product created, and then they're going to market the product. So it's stoking that anyway.
That's a really good thing to just touch base with as well, is production, because I can see, the author out there listening to this going, well, this is great, we can upload our audiobooks, but I don't have audiobooks. So I'd love for you to just explain a little bit how you can solve that problem for people, helping them to get their audiobooks produced, because I think that'll be, the major starting point for a lot of the people listening.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we didn't skip a beat with production, which is nice, because we work with about almost 10,000 narrators all over the world, and almost all of them have home studios. Like, they're the original quarantined people, right? Like, they're used to shutting themselves in a box all day and working. So like, everybody there didn't have to worry about like any interruptions. And so, we work with, almost 10,000 narrators all over the world, all kinds of different language. I think 24 languages and dialects we can support right now. And basically, we take a different approach, a more hands-on approach than what some of our competitors out there do. My belief is that Findaway Voices is the best place to make an audiobook if you have no idea how to make an audiobook, because we really take a really personalized approach and we guide you through the whole process. So what happens is, when you start the process, you upload your manuscript, and right there we scrape the word count and we start giving you estimates on how much this is going to cost, right? Because the first question everybody asks is, how much is it going to cost to make an audiobook? And it's actually a really simple thing to calculate. It's how long is the audiobook times how much is the narrator. Narrators charge based on a per finished hour rate. So you're looking at the number of hours the finished audiobook is, without regard to how long it takes them to make it. A good narrator is at like 2 to 3 hours to make one finished hour of audio. A less experienced narrator could take 4 to 5 hours to make a finished hour of audio. That includes, pickups and re-records and editing and mastering and all of that stuff that goes into making a high quality audio product. But you're not paying for, how long it takes them to make that hour. You're just paying for the finished hour. And like, a lot of narrators are in the $200 to $300 per finished hour range. It goes lower, it goes way higher if you want to pay for like a celebrity or something like that. But then you just multiply the length you think your book is going to be, which we scrape the word count, we get that for you. So you get an estimate right up front. And then we learn as much as we can about your book. It's like a 6-page questionnaire. It's like filling out a dating profile of like, we want to know everything that you want this audiobook to sound like. Sound-alikes, different accents, languages that are going to be required. Is the voice warm, or is it
get Gilbert
sensual?
Godfrey to do my erotica book?
There you go. I'm sure there's a niche that is hungry for that. And then all of those responses go to like a human casting agent. Imagine that. Like, we use a human. It's not all algorithmic. It's not an automatic spit something out on the other side. We use a mixture of art and science, right? Like, if you need a male narrator, that cuts the list in half. Or if you need a female narrator, we can do some filtering. But usually after all of those like objective filters come out, we still have a couple hundred or maybe even 1,000 narrators that could be good for your project. And this is where our casting team comes in. They look at all the answers. They look at the narrators they have available. They kind of know the schedules as well. They're keeping track of everything. And they put together a list of 10 narrators who they think would be outstanding for your book. Personalized. It takes a couple days. It's not instant.
And that's for everybody, regardless of how much you spend.
Every single book.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Every single book. And there's no commitment up to this point, right? And actually even past this point. So you hear the voices. You're not paying us anything at this point. We want you to find the right narrator. From there, you listen to their samples, you see their rates and their full project estimates, and then you can actually request auditions from any or all of them as well, which means they're going to go into their studio, they're going to read 5 minutes of your book. All of them are going to read 5 minutes of your book that you're interested in. So you can compare apples to apples, the same segment of text in different narrators. And again, through here, no commitment. You want to walk away anytime, you don't owe us a dime. We're just doing this to get the production and make sure that the productions we get, everybody's really happy with, right? And then at the time that you decide, okay, narrator ABC, I'm going with them. That's when you sign the contracts. That's when you're on the hook for the production cost. And we sign the contracts, and then the narrator can get in the studio and start recording. And you don't pay until it's done.
Do you have advice?
Sorry, can I squeeze in one?
Yeah,
because there's one thing from Will's that I know people are going to be asking about. So I just wanted to toss in the number that we heard, and to correct me if this is wrong, is that one finished hour tends to be around 9,000 words. Is that still right?
Yep, it's about 9,300 if you want to get really precise.
Okay, because I could imagine people doing the calculation and saying, well, that's the one piece of information I don't have. So
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead, Sean.
Well, I was just asking about, casting is a huge part of it. And we ate a lot of dookie pie when we, tried our audio on our own. And that was like, I think where we really fell short. We ended up having a great narrator for Write, Publish, Repeat, and for Robot Proletariat, same narrator actually. They just both ended up really working. But most of our casting decisions, like we know that person, they'll do something awesome.
And they are awesome in a different context.
Right, but they didn't match the material at all. And we went into that really naive. Like we didn't really know how important casting was. I think we learned a lot by working with Podium, how instrumental a great cast was to the right project, and whether you have full casts or just individual narrators. But we didn't have that skill. So I think that the fact that you're bringing that is amazing, and that really helps authors out, because that's a skill set we're not even equipped to make that decision unless we actually listen to audiobooks in the genre that are being sold, because it's really not our opinion that matters. It's what the genre convention says.
I'm glad you said that. That's key to everything. It's not your personal preference that matters. It's what are your listeners going to want. Yeah.
In fact, it may be getting in the way, which it did for us. It's a lot like you have to have an on-genre cover or you're not going to sell that book. You have to hit certain tropes in a genre or you're not going to get good reviews. It's the same is true with casting. So I love that you bring that. My question is, how do you scale? So the audio is obviously the hardest thing about getting our product out there other than ebooks. We all want to do it because it's growth, there's less competition, but you're talking, even if you get a 10-hour book or whatever, you're talking thousands of dollars regardless. So if you have a 5-book series, it's a much bigger investment. So do you have any kind of counseling or best practices on where you pick to start and kind of navigate somebody through that process? Because for us, we did approach audio a couple of years ago and we really fell flat on it for the second time, but it was because we made really poor decisions about what from our catalog we should do. So where's that process? And then do you start with, okay, I can see you're using a $200 narrator now, but you really want the $600 narrator. Here's how you get there.
Yeah. Okay. There's a lot to unpack there. I'm going to try to hit all of it. First off, I would say, when you're deciding what audiobooks of yours, say you have a big catalog and nothing's in audio and you're deciding what to start with, choose whatever's doing best in ebook and start there. Do not expect audiobooks to magically revive a series that's not doing well in other formats. So that's one thing I would.
Not a silver bullet.
Not a silver bullet. It's a growth industry. You're going to grab new readers, but it's also it's not going to pick up a book that's not doing well and magically revive it. Okay,
is it kind of like Patreon, where people think, if I put up a Patreon page, people will send me money, but it doesn't work if you don't have an audience already.
Yeah. I mean, you need to do all of the marketing that you do on your ebook as well. Like these things, it's not a golden egg. You still have to work at it. You still have to put some effort into the launch marketing, the launch planning. You can't just put it out there and hope. You can put it out there and hope for the best, but your ROI might.
Do you have any silver bullets available?
I do not. I do not. So that's where I would start with that. As far as the narrator stuff goes, I would recommend keeping the same narrator for the entire series. I would say if you have the series mapped out and you know exactly where it's going to start and end, you know it's a 6-book series that's going to be written and released over the next 2 years, you can kind of leverage that plan to help with your negotiations with narrators as well, right? So narrators are independent contractors. They want the work. They're fighting for every project. They're auditioning. And when they get a book, like that's a job for them. And if they can sign 6 books at a time, then that's a certain amount of work that they don't have to audition for, that they know is locked in on their schedule.
So those prices are negotiable. If somebody says, I charge $400 a finished hour, and that's the narrator you really, really want, you can say, you know what, look, I've got 6 books. I can only spend $300 a finished hour, but there are 6 books. And the narrator could then choose that regardless of what it says on the dashboard.
Can you read it really fast?
Right. Oh, we've heard that one before.
I'm
yes,
sure. I can imagine.
Everything is negotiable. I would say your likelihood of negotiating a single book is pretty low. Like that narrator knows what it takes to make the book. If you're talking a 3 or more book series, you should absolutely ask and say like, what is your price if we lock in all 3 books? And at that point, you have to remember, like, there is some risk for you at that point too. Say you go from, and it's not going to go from $600 to $300 per finished hour. That's a pretty drastic discount. But like, it could go from $300 to $250 maybe, which over the course of 6 books can add up to some serious money. You're also going to have to lay down like the contract for doing all 6 books. And then if book 1 and 2 aren't doing so well and you want to bail out, like, well, you've signed and you've agreed to do all 6 books. So you really, you got to be careful and like consider that when you're thinking about the negotiation. The more you can book for a narrator at the time, the more likely they are going to be to deal with you. But it's also going to be a big commitment for you.
Who handles, like, in a case of an author backing out? Who enforces the payment to the creator? Do you guys have to like step in and stuff? Or?
Yeah. So this is the way we're structured is, yeah, that's a great question. I've never gotten that question before, but I'm super happy to answer it. I wish more people would ask that question.
Oh, but we have something litigious. Dave's on it.
If something could go wrong, I'm gonna.
This is really less litigious, and it's more what's the worst that can happen.
Right.
And that's his department officially.
So neither party, the author or the narrator, contracts with each other. They both contract with us. We sit in the middle and we protect both parties and we enforce both parties. So the author is committing to the production with us, and the narrator is committing to deliver the production with us. Okay. So in the case, and this has happened before, luckily it doesn't happen very often, but in the case where like the production happens, the narrator puts a great product out there and the author ghosts us. They're just nowhere to be found. They refuse to pay us. Guess what? The narrator still gets paid because they contracted with us and we protect them from that situation. Great. And it does happen every once in a while. And we'll unfortunately have to go after that, that payment. And sometimes it's payment plans. Like we're absorbing like a lot of stuff.
Would you like to name any names?
No, I would not like to.
Who's the most unstable screw up of an author?
Usually it's actually like pretty heart-wrenching stories of like why this payment fell through, and like you really feel
I
bad
can
for
actually imagine this.
Yeah,
is
it's
really
like it's never a happy thing when that happens, because everybody like starts the production with high hopes and like optimism, and when it doesn't happen, it's like it's not fun. On the other side of things, if the narrator doesn't deliver the audio and they deliver a product that is not up to standard, well, that author is not going to pay for it. Like the narrator's not getting paid for it either. We're going to enforce that. But there are some times on other platforms where you hear about like, I paid this narrator up front and they never delivered the audiobook and I'm just out a couple grand and I have no recourse. Like we protect both situations there. And we sit in the middle to protect both parties. So on the negotiation stage, we also sit in the middle. So we'll help like go back and forth. It's the nice part of having a human casting agent and a human production assistant to help you through the process every step of the way.
So you're saving people from a ton of hassles. I mean, that sounds worth it already.
Thank you. We think so.
Speaking of series, does it make more sense to do the audiobooks as they come out? Like simultaneous release is part of this question too. Like, is that a big deal? Or does it make more sense to try and bundle like you were describing and wait till everything's done and just sort of do a mass attack?
I always recommend simultaneous release. There's a reason the big publishers do it. You never see Penguin Random House release without an audiobook. We've done the math and we see about a 30% boost on average for your audiobook sales when you simultaneous release. There's no day that has more buzz for your audiobook than the day it's released. And you're probably putting all of your marketing efforts and marketing planning into that one launch day. If your audiobook releases 6 weeks later or 6 months later, you're just not likely to give it the same amount of care when it launches, and it's not going to ride the back of the big wave. So we see a big benefit there. But it's something you have to weigh, because that's, often 6 weeks is a normal production time, and that's 6 weeks that your ebook is done and could be selling, and it's not. So is that 30% boost on your audiobooks going to be worth it? That's not a decision I can make for you. It's just I can let you know the data and tell you from my perspective, where I care about the audiobook sales. It is always a good idea to simultaneous release.
So what? Say an author's been doing pretty well for themselves in books, but they haven't jumped into audio yet. What is a good way to go into that backlist and build up some publicity and stuff for these books, because they're not going to be simultaneously released?
Yeah. In that case, again, I would start with your best performing series first. I would go there. And let's say it's a 6-book series. I would do 1, 2, and 3 and release all of those at once. See how it goes, because you don't want just book 1. That's not going to make anybody salivate when they're going towards the audiobook listing. If they see that they have some stuff to get at, then you can also bundle it into an omnibus for the first 3. See how that goes, then start going 4, 5, 6, one at a time. So release all 3 at once, and then start doing staggered releases for each individual book after that.
I think it's worth adding here, and Will, tell me if I'm wrong about this, but behind all of these things that we're saying is that I think a lot of people don't realize that there are dedicated audio consumers, and that's
Absolutely.
They're preferred almost exclusively in a lot of cases, to the extent that they're like, well, if it doesn't have an audiobook, I'm really not interested in a lot of cases, just because, reading takes time. You got to sit down with it and stare at it, and you can usually do audiobooks in the background. So I'm guessing that what you just said about do 3 books rather than just 1 when you're going is because I'm guessing that a dedicated audiobook reader is going to get to there and go, but only the first one. So should I start it? Because maybe they won't even do the others, right? Is it worth my time?
Exactly. There are a lot of dedicated exactly what you said. People who just listen to audiobooks. And, like I said before, it's not a golden egg. You're not going to magically find every one of those people when it comes, but when they're seeing your launch materials, those people are looking for the audiobook listing and they're wanting to see it right away. And if they don't, it's not going on a wish list. They're just going to forget about it,
That's so true. And also, I'm an avid audiobook listener. I was just checking my stats. I've listened to almost 5 months worth of audio hours. So I'm like that's the lifespan of
in
my
the past month.
Does it say how many books that is, Neve?
I don't know, but I have 600 in my library.
You beat me. I have just under 500 in mine.
but I was gonna say, when I'm looking for new material, I always do. As an audiobook listener, I'm I have a bigger problem with finishing too fast than and then not having something else to read. So if I'm finding something new, I'm definitely 20 book series, or each of the books is 20 hours, and that's a huge decision maker for me, for sure.
Absolutely. And this is actually a good time to mention, in the the closing credits of your audiobook, you absolutely should be plugging your author website, your email list. If you want to be notified when book 4 is released, please sign up here. All of that stuff that you do in the back matter of your ebooks and stuff also translates into audio. Just think ahead so that you write out the script of what you want the narrator to read. Because if you see it's a 6-book series, but only 3 are out, and you listen to all 3, you definitely want to know when book 4 is out, and that's a guaranteed sale for you.
So
that's a great tidbit.
Could we transition to talking a little bit about platforms? Because I think that's what has everyone really buzzing at the moment. Is there's new platforms. Spotify is starting to go into audiobooks. We're starting to see new stuff happen and new platforms open up. So I would just love to hear your take on the different platforms that there are and what's happening right now.
Is that do you think that all these new platforms is why Amazon's now got their sort of unlimited audio books you can listen to?
That was an interesting timing. So you mentioned Spotify. They don't actually have audiobooks in a formal way right now. They just had that job posting a couple weeks ago for a head of audiobooks. I think it was the title. And the internet went crazy on that for a little bit. And then that job post disappeared a couple days later. There are some companies that can get your audiobooks on Spotify right now. I wouldn't recommend it. I don't like the way they're doing it. It's not giving your audiobook a great chance. Basically, they're splitting your audiobook up into 3-minute chunks as tracks, and they're uploading it as an album, which means consumers can shuffle your audiobook 3 minutes at a time, which is just like, come on. Like, like when you're going to be there on that platform doing audiobooks, you want the experience to be good. You want it to be great. You want it to the discovery on Spotify is like, that's killer, right? Like, don't you want something like geared just towards audiobooks for discovery there? So you're also getting music term payouts when you do that, not audiobook level payouts. So, Spotify has not launched audiobooks yet. It's clear that they might be exploring it with that job post that went out, but that's not one of our partners, and they're not doing audiobooks in a serious way right now. But let's talk about some of the other platforms, because we have 43. We're not going to go through all of them. There's some that are maybe more interesting than others. The one that I would love to start with, because it's the first one I get asked about all the time, is Chirp.
Can I just ask a quick question before we go into individual ones?
Yeah.
Is there any reason why somebody wouldn't just select all and put your stuff available everywhere? Or is it something you really want to take the time to curate because, I'm not going to get this payout here? Or like, is it dependent on genre and there is no one size fits all? And I swear, last question, and then just take it to town.
No, this is all about questions. I love it.
do you have, is there like, because I think, again, being able to help an author with casting is a remarkable thing. Do you help them kind of individualize their marketing plan?
I will say almost everybody leaves everything selected. Send it to all the places. When you get up to this number of like 43 partners, you haven't heard of half of them because they're in different markets and countries that you don't know what niche they're at. You're not going to be tailoring a marketing plan to each one. At that point, your strategy is, I just want to be everywhere that somebody's potentially searching for my book. Like, if they type my book title into a search field, I want it to show up. And you just want to capture those sales. So,
and there's no negative to it, I would imagine, being in all of them.
I don't think so. There's some people with the belief that library sales cannibalize your retail sales. I don't believe it. I see evidence against that.
I don't
but there are some people who will go through and they will uncheck all of the library platforms, and that's totally fine. You can do that. You have the control. Every single platform you can check or uncheck. And if you want to change your strategy a month later or a day later, go ahead and go and change that and republish your book. So we give you that control of like, if you want to meddle and go in there and some people are like, you know what, I'm going to put it on the retail platforms for 30 days, and then I'm going to add in library, and then I'm going to add in subscription, and they like get really complicated with it. That's cool too. But I will say the vast majority.
But that's like a function of, do you have 4 books to diddle with or 40 books to diddle with too, right?
Oh, for sure. For sure. And the vast majority of people just say, send it everywhere.
Was that all the questions, Sean?
What were you going to say? You're going to say something about Chirp before Sean.
Yeah. Oh, that's right.
So let's dive into Chirp. Do you guys know what Chirp is? Have you heard of Chirp?
Is that BookBub?
BookBubs.
It is. Yeah. So the same team from BookBub released Chirp over a year ago now, I think. It's been a while. They are focused on featured deals, like you would expect BookBub to do. They have built a list of audiobook listeners. So they started to survey their old list and build a new list of people who want audiobooks. And then they send a daily deal email with deeply discounted audiobooks. We're talking like 99 cents, $1.99, which before Chirp was like unheard of in the audiobook market, right? Audiobooks are generally way more expensive than ebooks. A 99-cent audiobook, like, that gets people's attention. And it really did. They've grown like crazy. We're really excited about it. The thing that they did that a lot of people still don't realize is they didn't launch in the same way that a BookBub featured deal does. They don't just send out the email to people and say, here's all the places you can buy it. They said, no, we're the retailer. You buy it from us. And why did they do that? This is actually an important note. The reason they couldn't do it the same way as the BookBub featured deal and like send it everywhere is because you have no control of your price on Audible. You can't discount your book on Audible. So how do you put a service like that out there where you're advertising discounts, but you're just kind of ignoring Audible, right? So it led them to, they're actually a full retailer. They have a full catalog. If your book is through Findaway Voices, it's likely your book is for sale on Chirp, even when it's not a featured deal. And you have control over discounting that and applying for featured deals on the BookBub dashboard that can even just like give you tons more visibility in those deal emails. So you can, and actually, you know, we're working with Chirp on education materials all the time. We're doing a webinar. I don't know when like this is going to come out, but like there's some education materials you can probably find. We're going to release the recording and stuff on like all about feature deals, how to get those feature deals, how to leverage it and maximize the deal. So like when you get the deal on book one, what do you do with the rest of the series to make sure the read through happens? And they're starting to do some like really great things with like when people are reading books, they're getting notifications and emails about like, hey, you should read the book 2 and book 3 is available and that kind of stuff too. So like all of those things that you really want retailers to like sink their teeth into those series and get the read through, because like the retailers want it just as much as the author does. Like when somebody reads book 1, 2, and 3, they're gonna read book 4. They're gonna buy that book. They're doing some really smart and sophisticated things there too.
So what do you think is well, okay, so let's talk state of the industry sorts of stuff. So I was going to say, what is the future of audiobooks, but I think we need to talk about the present of audiobooks first. So you answered my question about COVID, but in general, like how much has changed since sort of like when self-publishing was brand new or when you guys were brand new, like what's changed in the past handful of years that authors should be aware of?
You know, I think the number of retail options that you have and library options, the penetration into those markets has changed significantly. Like we have more than doubled our network since when we launched. We didn't have Chirp, we didn't have Apple, we didn't have Google, we didn't have like a ton of players have launched since the beginning. So if you haven't looked at us since we launched, I think it's worth another look now. And we have a ton more coming in the rest of this year. I think we have about 10 more distribution changes that are coming by the end of the year. So that just the amount of opportunity and the amount of players in this industry is growing really rapidly. And each one is taking a little chip out of the industry and growing it a little bit too. So I think that's the biggest thing. Like every time like a new partner comes up and maybe it's $10 a month for you, or maybe it's $50 a month, but like that adds up and it makes that wide exclusivity equation much more favorable for wide.
Is there any math that helps? Because I think this is a very difficult decision for authors because they really want to play this. They really want to get into audio. I think there's a huge amount of FOMO when it comes to audio too. You see like, oh my God, the industry is taking off. I'm missing this opportunity. And I could see it being a place where authors make really bad decisions. I mean, we've made bad decisions and we can afford the bad decisions that we made. Like, we'll do better next time, which is not always the best way to do business. And if an author is just like, let's say a struggling single parent or moonlighting, those decisions really, really count. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if this goes to, back to the marketing question. Do you have somebody who kind of can help tailor like a specific plan for you as an author? Or just like learning resources on the site? Do you have anything like that really helps an author before they go in to kind of make this decision to sit down and make a better decision?
Man, it's kind of disappointing. The answer is no. But I'm going to be super honest with you. Is like we don't do individual consultations with customers about their marketing plans. Like if you have a specific question, we're happy to answer it, but we're not going to like build up your marketing plan with you. We have a blog and it has a lot of feature announcements, and we're constantly building more tools to help you build your own marketing plan, like releasing more opportunities for discounts and giveaway codes and review codes being expanded into new territories, and Authors Direct is a new storefront for you to like get a great royalty rate at. And like we're giving that's our angle, right? We're giving you all the tools to be successful, but we're not necessarily taking that step of like building the marketing plan with you.
Well, okay,
because
so
we're not a publisher. I mean, that's what
it makes sense, and it doesn't seem like that's something that you should offer because you'd be really top heavy. Like that'd be a really expensive thing to offer for what you would be getting back for it. So, like I totally understand that, but where can authors get that information? Is it just kind of like we know that K-Lytics is a resource where we could see what genres are performing really well. So if we want to reduce it to a math equation and say, what is our risk? If it's this genre, there's this number of readers. Is there an equivalent for audio so that we can kind of get a bird's eye view of the landscape? Or is it just something we have to wait for the market to mature a little bit, because those tools weren't available for Kindle many years ago.
Those tools will come. There's just not a lot out there right now. There's just not a lot out there that's specific for audio. I will say a lot of the marketing strategies and tactics that you use for your ebook will translate to audio. Reader magnets, first in series free, deep discounts, like all of that kind of stuff translates well into audio though.
But specific to audiobook listeners, right? Like you need to almost subdivide your list to do that, right? Like I don't think we're expecting media transfer as much.
Yes, the general principles work, but you need to target them a little differently for sure.
Well, if the question is about mitigating risk, isn't there the possibility of doing profit sharing with your narrators and other things, other potential setups that can kind of help people to get into it, even if they don't have a lot of resources to put into it?
Absolutely, yeah. So we introduced a program we call Voiceshare a little over a year ago, and it's a way to cut the audiobook price in half for you. So if it was going to cost $2,000, now it only costs $1,000, and you share the royalties with the narrator over the next 10 years. So I don't think I mentioned how we make money, which is kind of important. Like Findaway Voices has a 20% distribution fee. So if you earn a $10 in royalties, you're keeping $8 of it, right? So we're taking 20% of all the royalties earned. And in the Voiceshare plan, you pay half up front for the narrator, and then Findaway takes 20%, and the narrator gets 20%, and you keep 60%. So you keep more than half the royalties, you pay half up front, and for the next 10 years, it's a pretty good deal. You're not guaranteed to get it, right? Like you have to find a narrator who wants to take on your book and do it for half the price in order to share the royalties. And we do ask you for like some previous sales data, either from a similar series that you've done or ebook sales data on this to like help the narrator make the informed decision there. But it can absolutely lower your risk by lowering the price. And we have a defined buyout too. So unlike with like ACX, where if you do a royalty share, you're in it for 7 years, there's no getting out of it. We do have a defined a buyout plan where like for 1.5x the cost. So let's say, it's going to cost $2,000. You paid $1,000. If at any time you want out, you pay another $2,000, narrator gets paid 1.5x, you're out. And then you're back to 80% royalties.
Wow. Those seem like really great arrangements.
Thanks. The versions of the hybrid royalty plan have been out for a long time. It just took us a while to find out how we wanted to do it right. We knew we couldn't do it $0 up front because it just doesn't make sense. It puts way too much risk on the narrator at that point.
No, it's really hard to create a win-win, but that sounds like it is.
And by locking on 50%, it takes all the negotiation out of that point too. So like everybody knows exactly what they're getting there. It's been really successful. We've seen some great wins from it so far.
Wait, do narrators typically make a percentage on book sales after the fact?
No.
Okay.
No, typically when you pay per finished hour and you pay for that narration, as soon as it's delivered, you own it. And the narrator does not take a cut of that. And it's worth noting also, like when you produce with us, it's not necessary that you distribute with us either. Like when you pay, that book is yours. And if you want to take it to somewhere else and not upload it to Findaway, that is totally fine.
But that'd be a pretty dumb thing to do, wouldn't it?
It would be so weird. I don't know why anybody would do that. We make it really easy to not do that because almost nobody wants to. Like you said at the beginning, there's not many people positioned like us in the industry. So there's not many places to take it. If you have an audiobook, you're going to want it on Findaway Voices, unless you've decided to go exclusive, which is, from my perspective, a terrible idea.
Yeah, so let's talk horizon. What do you see like 5 years from now with the audio space? Where's the biggest potential, and where could things go wrong? And feel free to have that conversation with Dave. He's ready.
The sun will just consume us all in 5 years.
Wow, that's a big question. I like to look at the ebook market for inspiration on where the audiobook market is going. We are, when I say we, the audiobook market is lagging behind a lot of the tools, the data, the deals, like everything that's going on in the ebook world. It's just not as mature. There's no top ranking lists. Like when you get a BookBub featured deal and you like ride that wave of being on the top of the list for a while, like that just doesn't happen in audio. There's no rankings. There's no way to leverage that. Platforms are going to get more and more sophisticated with features that retain customers and get great with read through. I think new technologies in audio will be really powerful for more immersive storytelling in the next couple of years, maybe next 3 to 5 years. I think how you define an audiobook, I think, is going to change. I think we could even see some like interactivity and like even games like dipping their toe into the audiobook space, where it's not just putting headphones on and listening to somebody for half an hour, but you're actually part of the story a little bit more. I think there's a lot of things like that technology are going to enable that will really shake up the audiobook world.
Do you find that it's difficult for companies to break in if they require like a very specific app to run their audiobooks versus, just being able to download it to whatever, music thing you have already going?
Do you mean like a new retailer popping up?
Yeah, but I mean, how many of them like do you have to?
Out of the 40 some options,
Like when I listen to a book,
right, Dave?
Yeah, when I listen to a book on Audible, I'm listening through Audible. I can't download it to like iTunes or whatever. Maybe you can, I don't know. But I mean, how many of these companies have their own individual thing that you have to go and download that app and listen to it? And does that become like a pain in the ass, or is there some universal
Only
way?
for you, Dave, because it's just one new app on your device. It's just.
Well, yeah, but I mean, apps can stop being carried. Like as an app updates, if the platform doesn't do well, then that app might not ever get updated again, and boom, you don't have it anymore.
Yeah, almost all of them. I can't think of it. I have a couple in mind that might let you download, but almost all of them are like the place where you download is the place where you listen. And if that were to go away, your audiobook would also go away. There's a service, Movies Anywhere, that will like hook up your Apple account and your Amazon account, and like whenever you buy a movie, like it
should be
pulls
something
it all
like
together.
that for audiobooks.
I think something like that could come.
Get on it.
Well, it's interesting because that's each platform wants to keep that person in their ecosystem. Every single one of those places is really incentivized to like, when you have an Audible library of 500 books, do you really want to wonder like, is that book in Audible or is it in Apple or is it in Scribd or is it in Kobo? And like all of a sudden you don't know where things are. So like there is a big switching cost. And I think any technologies that could help lower that switching cost would be great for consumers. But I don't know how receptive and willing retailers will be to embrace that.
Good answer.
What about the subscription models? Because like obviously that's what's taken over TV streaming, and in a lot of ways, Kindle Unlimited and other ebook subscription models are coming up. Do you think that will start to take over the audio space rather than paying for individual books?
Yeah, it's already had a huge impact. And Dave mentioned this earlier with the Audible plan that just came in. The Audible plan is all you can listen, but it's only Audible originals, right? It's only the books that like the Audible Studios has produced. Scribd does all you can listen. This is likely how Spotify would launch something. They're in the subscription model. It's very attractive. The romance package from Audible is shutting down on November 1st. I don't know if you saw this or not. The romance package was a great deal for people who listen to a ton of audiobooks. The payouts to authors were not so great. In fact, I was at your conference in Austin the first time that the very first Audible romance package payouts came out. And I remember everybody talking about like, I made 2 cents over the last 3 months. Like,
wow.
Yeah, it was like, and they adjusted some things since then to make it a little more favorable. But
so it's like 3 cents.
Well, it's gone now, so it's 0. But all of those consumers
even 3 is better than 0.
All those consumers who are relying on that service are now going to scatter to other places. And are they going to scatter to Audible buying a $15 credit a month for one book? Or are they going to scatter to Scribd? And are they going to scatter to other places like HiBooks and other subscription models? I think that's more likely. So subscription has been very impactful in the industry. The fact that most people don't re-listen to audiobooks, I think will make subscription really strong. Like if you stop paying for it, it's not in your library. Okay. I also think rental doesn't exist right now. Rental would be really interesting for audiobooks. If you could pay a fraction of the price to just have it for 2 weeks or a month and then it disappears, that could be really interesting.
And if you didn't finish it, you have to re-rent it. That's fair.
Just like a movie. Absolutely.
Yeah, that'd be a really cool model.
Do you think subscription hurts authors?
I don't. I think it's grown the market far more.
Has it hurt filmmakers or TV show people?
I don't know. I'm not.
The answer is no. There's enough story for everyone, Dave.
I mean,
to consume more because it doesn't cost them more, and so then it actually leads to
Yeah, like right now,
but
you get that credit at Audible, right? So if you don't get you'll wait. Well, I got another credit coming in 2 weeks.
Until you hit your limit, and then they just evaporate. Stupid.
Well, it's also better for different types of content as well too. So like when you're thinking about the credit worthiness, like you paid $15 for this credit, are you going to trade it in for a 2-hour book? No, if you're the author of that 2-hour book, like Audible's not doing good for you.
No.
Scribd is going to do good for you because it's a level playing field. Like,
but
I paid the $8.99 a month. I can listen to whatever I want. I'm not thinking about like how long the audiobook is and how much value I'm getting out of it.
That really should be removed, because then you could do things like serialized fiction with audio, which would really work in that format even better, I think, than text for a lot of reasons.
My question is not without merit, though, because there are authors that are hurt by Kindle Unlimited.
For sure.
Well, sure there are, Dave, but you talk wide versus KU, there's no question, right?
Yeah.
So even if it hurts some authors, most authors are making most of their money there. So you're always going to have, it's competition. So
Yeah.
Of course.
Okay.
Yeah, and none of the subscription partners in the audiobook world that we work with are asking for exclusivity either. So it's just one part of
That's
the plan. It's
important,
one
yeah.
spoke in the wheel, as opposed to like you're all in on the subscription payouts. That would be a tough equation for anybody to handle. But when it's additive to everything,
But that's
else,
what Audible's asking for.
yes.
So Dave, that does hurt authors in that context.
Well, yeah, I know. I agree with y'all. Okay.
All right. So, in kind of closing, just tell me if you agree or disagree with this, but just distilling this down for anyone listening, especially the person I'm trying to talk to most right now is the person deciding whether to get involved in audio, because
What's that person's name? Just so he knows we're talking to him.
Jimmy's
Okay.
cracking corn right now, and he cares very much about audio.
All right.
And in this conversation, I don't know where this is in our lineup, in season 1, but regardless, you've probably heard us talk about audio, or you will. It's exciting. This one is more
it's towards
dedicated.
the end, so every single person up to this point has been like, audio is big. Audio is the next big thing.
Right. For our recording order, we've already done most of our episodes, and audio is something that keeps coming up. And I just know if I was listening, even if I only had one book out, I'd be thinking about how to get to audio. And I think that the answer there is pretty much every author should be thinking about audio. Every author should be considering it. But it's pretty important to think about your entrance, like when you're going to do it. And it seems to me in everything that we've kind of been talking about, not just in this episode, but in all the episodes, audio is an absolute addition that you want to have, but it's a separate marketplace. And it takes a separate kind of marketing, because you may have a list of 20,000 really avid readers. That doesn't mean you're all of a sudden going to blow up on audio. It's like going from KU to wide. Wide is a different market. You have to approach your marketing differently now that you're not in KU. So audio feels very much to me, this is what I'm asking. Audio feels very much to me like you should do it when you can support the marketing, not just the budget to get stuff done. Because the worst thing that could happen with audio, which has happened to us a few times now, is these false starts where we get some stuff produced, but we don't have the engine to sell the stuff. So we put all this money up out front and then weren't really able to drive it. So it's not just about, do you have enough money to get the project done, which I think it does behoove any author to save a little bit and make sure that they can afford to do it. But also, how does this factor into all of your other plans? Because if you just drop audio and expect Findaway to magically make money, that's not going to happen, right? So is it more important to get going fast and be part of the ecosystem, or is it more important to delay, even if it's like 6 months to a year, until you're really able to do that?
Great question. So the way I would position it is audio is going to be an important part of your portfolio. Whether it is now or later, it's something that you're going to have. And when you have that audiobook, it's an asset that you'll be able to leverage for as long as your books are on sale. Do not go into debt to do this. Like, that's not the right way to do it. I do agree. Like, you should save up and make sure you can afford it before you make that investment. And you need to be able to support
putting
it.
a 6-book series on a credit card, not a good idea?
Not a good idea. No. I would not recommend that. But I think, it depends on how seriously you want to take yourself as an author and how seriously you want to take your author business, because it is going to be a part of your portfolio at some point. Do you want to do it now? Do you want to do it later? Think about it as an asset that you will be able to leverage for a while. Make sure that you're able to support that asset and give it the love it deserves. But also realize that, like, if you could go into it without supporting it and just knowing that it's sitting there for when you are ready to support it, and maybe it trickles in $10 a month or $50 a month or something like that, as long as you have the right, as long as it's part of your plan, right? It needs to be a conscious part of your plan. And you can certainly put an audiobook out there before you're ready to support it, and just have it sitting there as another asset. Like, look on your Amazon page, when it shows like you got a paperback, you got an ebook, you got an audiobook, you look legit. Like, there are some benefits there. But if your goal is ROI, like, make sure that you're ready to support it.
All right. Well, thanks so much for being here, Will, and for telling us all about audiobooks. And it was, the rest of our state of the industry have been book focused, so this is interesting to have this perspective as well.
Thanks for having me. This was super fun.
Well, awesome, and thanks to everybody. And so, findaway.com. Is that right?
Findawayvoices.com. Yeah.
Okay.
We also own findaway.com, but you won't find what you're looking for there.
That won't help you. Okay. And you said, where do I sign up? my.findaway.com. But apparently you can just get there through Findaway Voices, which is easier.
Findawayvoices.com is the place to go.
There you go. Okay. So thanks everybody for listening. Stay tuned for more episodes. That's always true. I don't know why I say it, just something to say. And thanks everybody. And we'll see you on the next episode.
Adios.
Adios has become I'm realizing you're still recording. Well, I'm